LPD 1041.
Signal 10 assistance.
Inside the Squad, presented by the Lafayette Police Department. To serve and protect is not just a motto, it's our mission.
Sending another unit.
Step it up.
Welcome back to Inside the Squad. Woo! So it has officially been 1 year since the grand opening of the Lafayette Public Safety Center. Let's just let that soak in for a little bit. Like, wow, what an accomplishment.
And I was telling AJ the other day, like, I can't believe it's been a year. It just seems like it's been 10 years. I don't know. It's just, time flies, and it's been great.
Yeah.
Really enjoy it.
Time sure has flown. And this building has sort of become an icon, not just in the city of Lafayette, but also in policing. It's basically the best in class people were brought in here to work on this project. And we're honored today to be joined by a couple of them. Why don't we go around the table and all of you introduce yourselves and what role you had in this project?
My name is Carrie Sermersheim. I work on the project development team at American Structurepoint. We were the architect of record, the civil engineer, and the structural engineer of record.
Okay.
I'm Dennis Carson, Economic Development Director for the City of Lafayette. I was basically the staff liaison for the project.
And my name's Annette Basham, and I work with JS Held and was the owner's representative for the city.
Well, I'm just glad you're here, and I'm proud to call you all friends. Dennis, and he works for the city, so we're automatically friends. But a lot of times when you have a building project, people become at odds with each other and in home building and things like that, and that was not the case with this. So when we see you guys, we love seeing you and love welcoming you back. So you guys, I can definitely say, are friends. So thanks for being back today for us.
Thank you.
Sure. Let us start out from the very beginning. Like, why was this building needed? Talk me through the beginning discussions of this project.
So the initial, people a lot of times don't realize this, but about 15 years ago, Donnie Roush, who was the chief, did a space study, and it was back then that we knew we needed to move out of the 20 North 6th Street, our old location. And we were on top of each other. Detectives were sharing offices. There was no parking. And we did a 5-year plan. And it was clear that we were going to grow, the city was going to grow, and that we needed to do something. So from 15 years ago to right now, it's been a journey. That whole time was not planning or developing or doing anything like that, but it was planning and putting things in place by the mayor, city council to get funding to do this. And Dennis probably knows that backstory way better than me, but the old Public Safety Center was an old office building. I got a picture outside of that building with JFK standing on the sidewalk. So there was a building that was a municipal building. It wasn't built for police work, and we can talk about that more later, but this building is designed to keep people safe, to let the police officers do the job they're supposed to do. So, and I know we can talk about that later, but this was a plan in the making for 15 years, and Dennis probably knows more about that than I do, but it's been a project.
Yeah, Chief, I'll just add to that. I was an outsider, obviously, because, I'm not on the police force. So there was no reason for me to be in the facility and such. So, I didn't really know why in particular it was needed and such. But then after I took a tour of the facility, it became readily apparent.
When was that? When was that process started where you were going through?
That was, I've been over 2 years now ago and such. And, again, I'd always been on the outside of the facility. And as you said, it's an old facility and such. So, it was built at the time for the needs of Lafayette at the time, which was a much smaller community than what it is today. So, again, walking through what all of the personnel had to work with, the small offices, a big part of it being down in the basement, dispatch being in the basement, no windows, just extremely inadequate facility. And I walked out of there and I said to the mayor, this needs to happen.
Fight for us.
yeah. I mean, it should have happened probably several years ago, but I mean, it definitely needs to happen now.
Because it was renovated in 96 to have the new part that's to the west, which is the mayor and all the city offices. Mm-hmm. We took over the old municipal part. It was remodeled, but it was too small in 96 when we moved in. We're sharing offices even then.
Well, and the first time that I came to site, you were actually operating out of the training center as well as this facility across the street. Yeah. And then you had your even bigger challenges as far as the basement flooding. So dispatch would be affected because water would be in their space and that would interrupt their workflow. So it was immediately apparent to me that this project needed to happen.
You have your biggest division separated from everybody else. It's just leadership wise, it's a bad look. So it's nice to have everybody under one roof. You see each other, you have the hallway conversations, and it's nice to have everybody back.
We work with, PDs across the state, and to see this community support their police so just steadfastly that the mayor was able to prioritize this and truly make it happen is really impressive.
So this building was obviously very much needed. Out of the entire city, how did you decide on this location? Was there a specific reason on why the Public Safety Center was built right across the street from our old building?
Sure. Chief, I'm sure you are aware and remember that they did a study about it, and they looked at several different locations and looked at some more suburban locations, out of the city center as well, and looked at some others closer to the city center. But we came to quickly to the conclusion that it really needed to be part of City Hall. So we needed a kind of a campus here, with all of our other departments, because we all interact to some degree at least. So it made really sense to if we can get as close to City Hall as possible. So, fortunately, across the street, we already had a parking lot, which is the city owned and such. So then all we had to do was then buy the rest of the block, which, that was a process in itself and such. But it just made more sense to keep it as close to City Hall as possible and keep it in the city center, because the mayor, myself, everybody's really committed to the center city of Lafayette. So that was very important for us to keep it here.
And the city, I commend Dennis for it. The city downtown is really grown. It's vibrant. So I couldn't imagine not being downtown. Even when we were doing this project, thought maybe on top of the hill where the training center is, or on the outskirts where we can maybe get egress or ingress, it might be a little easier. But being downtown and what you've done downtown, Dennis, has been incredible. So
shout out to the local shops. Shop local Lafayette.
Yep. The downtown is you come downtown at night, it is busy, it's popping, it's great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of that, what was housed here prior? Did you have to knock anything down?
Right. Again, we did own a parking lot, which is a city parking lot right across the street from City Hall. But then the other part of the block had two buildings on it. One of them on the far end was a building that was built, I think, in the 80s or something. It was a relatively newer building, very small building. It wasn't of much consequence, really. But in the center of the block was an historic building, the Horner building, which was built in like 1924 or so. It was built as an auto showroom and repair shop. It had a really nice facade on the front of it. It was very nice, really looking historic building. So we didn't want to lose that building, but it's right in the middle of the block. So we did have to remove it and demolish it, but we kept the facade of it. So we actually, brick by brick, took the facade down and stored that, and then we actually put it back together brick by brick onto the Columbia Street side of the current parking garage that's with this facility. And now it serves as a micro retail space of 2 spaces, total of 900 square feet. We have 2 tenants in there. And we have one tenant now called a Pinch of Pepper that's in there. And we're using this guys as a kind of a retail incubator space. So they have short-term leases. And then after this, the entrepreneur that's in there decides that this is what they want to do and have a brick and mortar space, and we're going to help them find a permanent location in the downtown or somewhere in the community. And then on May 1st, we have another second tenant that's opening up, and she specializes in vintage items, so clothing and home decor and such. So we're really excited about those 2 things. But again, that historic preservation is very important to our community and to our downtown, so we wanted to preserve that. And then this opportunity to have this retail incubator and to provide more businesses and things downtown as well too.
Yeah.
And I think, Chief, to your point, being downtown has really benefited the public too with the new parking garage, right?
Yes, that's full, and Dennis can attest to that. It's full a lot of times. You see a lot of people walking through, which I like. I like seeing people downtown.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Yeah, that was the other opportunity. We needed another parking garage downtown to serve the commerce downtown and all the new rental housing developments downtown. So we needed more parking. We needed more parking for the city employees as well too. So this afforded us an opportunity to build a 465 space garage that houses the police department, the civil folks with the police department, and also the other city employees. And then there's about 250 spaces for the public as well.
And you talk about sorry, MK. You talk about the parking garage. That is probably, if I had to say the one thing I like about this building the most, is the parking garage. It sounds like a menial thing, like who cares about parking garage? But from where we came from, this was the parking garage. It was out in the open, so when guys get their weapons out of their cars or get ready for work. A lot of times it's in the rain, it's in the elements, you got people walking by. It's a secure garage, so it's fantastic having it. It's safer. We can get people in and out, if they're prisoners, in and out without having them running away or having to fight them in the street. So it is a great opportunity to have the parking garage.
Well, you can also, mention it has a unique facade to it as well.
Yeah, there's a light. So we get a lot of requests for light. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, so we turned them green. I got to make sure I did that last night. So,
and then the NCAA tourney.
Yeah, we did the gold for the Boilermaker. So we're getting a lot of requests. That took off. Yeah, Halloween. Mm-hmm. So that took off. We get a lot of requests, email like, hey, I want this color for this thing, and we got to kind of monitor those. But
who has the remote to that?
Okay, we kind of get it just right, but I do during the day, and I can't get it just right because it's not dark enough for me to see it.
But I think that brings up a good point too, because it's a showcases another way that you're really celebrating the community, and by having the public parking garage and separated from the secure parking garage, it really serves two functions. And a lot of conversation went into what did that look like, and how can we best, serve two different entities. And so the other part that I've heard just from the public is that they appreciate being able to have access to different events that are going on downtown, whereas they may have had to, find off-street parking that was several blocks away. And now this puts them right in the heart and adjacent to those events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's sort of a unique aspect. You don't think of a parking garage meaning like that big of a deal, but whenever I ask the officers what they like about the PSC, they're always like, parking garage. Okay.
I never heard that, but good. I hear that feedback too.
So let's move away from the parking garage just a little bit, and let's go back to the design aspects. Can you talk me through about how you settled on a design? I know there was community input, visiting other police stations. Talk me through that.
So it was interesting to try and deliver this design via COVID and everything virtual. I mean, architecture by nature is very collaborative. So we always knew that we had to get the input just in a different way. Do you want to talk about tours?
Yes, we did tour other facilities in the state and looked at them for best practices for this, because again, they were coming out of a very small facility that's very antiquated. So this was our opportunity to really do it right and such. So we looked at a lot of best practices, and then we involved the community a lot too. So as you mentioned during COVID, which was very interesting, and we had a very, I think, unique and innovative process for that public process where we couldn't meet and gather. So we held it at the Long Center for the Performing Arts, a block away, and did it virtual online, where we had representatives from all of us and from the Structurepoint as well and others to talk through the process and then take that public comment online as well too. But a unique aspect is we have these virtual rooms where the public could actually in real time look at different rooms that we were thinking about and proposing for the station and kind of walk through them, actually, rotate around them and everything. So it was extremely high tech.
That was a VR, right? It was a VR headset that you were doing.
It was during DDs, during design development.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
It was, it was a virtual tour. So it was a virtual plan room. Yeah. So when you logged on, you had access to, I'll call it the most current and best information. And then whatever you were interested in, back to like Dennis was saying, if you wanted to spin around a room and see all angles and feel the scale, you could. But there was also links to like the actual drawings that you could access.
So one of the things I think, though, that came out of this positively from COVID is even though all of those interactions were happening virtually, a big part of your project was introducing state-of-the-art technology into your building. So your team had an opportunity to really experience some of those newer technologies. But the other thing that was positive that came out of it is just the city and how they assembled such a award-winning design development team, architect, and construction team, all basically not having met each other in person. So as an unbiased third-party consultant, as an owner's representative, we see these meetings happening all the time. And we work with Structurepoint and companies like Kettle Hut very frequently. But being able to do that and not actually having been in front of those individuals, I think was a fantastic job on the city selection team.
Thank you. We think it was great too, Dennis.
No, it
I remember when we were coming in to do our interview, right, for our design selection.
Yes,
And, the mayor was not having that. He was like, I want everybody in person. And there were like 40 people from your side, and my full team, there were like probably 10 of us, right? And we're like, and this is May 2020, right? This is early in COVID. And Mayor Ross was like, nope, in person. And then the day before the interview, he's like, fine, we'll go Zoom. And so we were like scrambling. So now we had to flip everything around. And my team sent me straight to Lafayette, to Dennis's office. Remember that? And I was like, me and you need to figure out how to work teams.
Yeah.
I needed to make sure, just as much as my team understood how we were going to interview, that our owner understood too, so that you guys didn't have any problems.
Right,
so we had to figure that out down here in that co-op space.
We were doing a lot on the fly, that's for sure.
But it was so needed. I mean, we had to immerse ourselves in this technology. There was no other choice. Right.
And then coming out of that technology, though, we did mask up and we did meet in person, and we did have a presentation in person at the Long Theater where the community could come, give their opinion, give their feedback, and really engage the community right from the get-go. And then it went straight into the design sessions as far as, people coming together. There were probably 40 or 50 of us, maybe at any given time during the design development phase and the construction documentation phase at Lafayette Theater, all with our, elbow to elbow at the round tables, looking at all of the designs online in front of us, giving input and feedback. So
if I could build on that, and just on the design process. So we design in 3D and Revit, virtually and live a lot of times. So we run these live charrettes where our owners and partners can see, the decisions that they're making real time. Instead of traditionally the comments would come from, a static 2D piece of paper, and all the comments would come from the owners and the partners, and the architect and the design team would disappear for, 2 or 3 weeks and go make all the changes. And then we'd come back just hoping that we hit the nail on the head, right? Where now we've really embraced our virtual live shredding, where, if Dennis wants to add a window here, we can actively do that. If they want to see a different type of materiality on the material on the exterior, then we can do that, right?
And those interactive conversations and live design charrette sessions also help the owner to ask questions that they might not have thought to ask, or consider a different design than they might not have thought of, or look at, different options for material selection that's high durability and, has a longevity of 50 years. So.
Yeah, and the whole intent of the shredding is to get everyone kind of singing.
Define what shredding is.
Sorry, yes. So the whole intent of an architectural charrette, which is a visioning session, it's an active design. How would you describe it as an architect? I know what it is, but how do you describe it?
We want me to go into the history?
No.
It's a French word that goes. It's just a word for a process.
A process. Thank you.
It's kind of jargon among architects, really.
Yes,
but
that's what I was looking for. The process.
But it's supposed to be a quick iterative process where you meet together and do on designs and changes very quickly as such.
Okay. Yes. So
I got a new word now for something.
Yeah.
So find a way to use that for, please.
The architectural design shredding process is meant to be iterative, where you can test many different options and then start to build your common language and your songbook to where everyone's singing the same song. And when everybody gets to the end of it, the priorities are maintained, right? And that everyone feels like they've had a stake in it. So there's no bigger miss that we can imagine than getting to the end of the project and someone looking at the building saying, oh, it'd be great, but that's not acceptable. Let's be great.
So what I would add to that is it allows you to real time test out your functional programming. So you're able to take pieces of paper, cut them into dimensions that are the same size as a proposed room or area, put them on paper, and then you visually look at it, you think about your operational workflow, and you see if that is the right type of function for your team. So you get to early on avoid those mistakes that Carrie was talking about.
Yeah, well, and we also, you mentioned it earlier, we were able to do that with some VR headsets. So three-dimensionally, we're able to do exactly what you said in that and actually walk through it as well, too. So
I think as a design team, we try to be very sensitive to the fact that not all of our owners and users can speak drawings, right, and understand the scale and the adjacencies and the impact of the design on paper. So by putting them in the space that is respectful of the proportions and the flow, then there's no surprises at the end. You know exactly how you're going to move through your building. You can see the finishes on the wall. You see the paint colors. You can see the door hardware. I mean,
How do you even start out designing though? Like, were you going for like a certain feeling, or what were your priorities starting out?
You start with numbers on paper. So you have to understand the actual functional programming and workflow of a team, understand the number of individuals that need to operate in a space, understand what happens in that particular space, and then you determine basically square footage that your project is going to need. And then you have those conversations with each individual user group. So I think we had 20 different user groups that were defined for this particular project. And it wasn't just the Lafayette Police Department, it was the facilities team, and it was the finance team, and it was IT dispatch, and a lot of other city entities actually gave input and were sitting in those particular design sessions with us to say, yes, this is going to work for my maintenance team, or no, it's not going to work for my maintenance team, consistently giving that input for what their scope they own on the project.
and as you're trying to figure out who your groups are, some are obvious, some are not, right? Like the community room, that was always a priority. That was always meant to connect the PD back to the community and be that bridge.
that's an important point, because going into the project, that was one of the priorities for the mayor is how do we engage the community into this actual functional space. So it's not just a police department. This is a public safety center and all the things that come with that. And how can the police and the community both interact and engage? So it's really designed for that. We have the community room that functions for that. We can hold different functions and different activities and events. And then we didn't mention, we have a second level outdoor plaza, which functions as another park space in the downtown as well too. So that's a place where people can just come and, as a place, a passive park area, or it can be an event space as well too, and another opportunity for the police and the community to interact. But again, that engagement, it's all about community policing, as I'm sure you can speak to more than I can. But this whole center was built for that purpose, that engagement between the community and the department.
And it's been a year, and we're just still really noticing or getting our legs under us to do those things. We're having those events and working out the bugs of what we need to do and how those things are going to run. So we're still learning, and there's so much space, and it's wonderful. We don't really know what the capabilities are yet.
We had an eclipse party. That's
We had an
something.
eclipse party. We're having a movie night. I mean, we have all kinds of things to do. Cops and Goblins. So the building is special for that. MK is an expert. She got all kinds of ideas.
One of the first times that I was talking with Mayor Roseworski, he made a very specific statement to me, and it was that he wanted this to be a destination. He wanted it to be a place that the community went to. And I think, to your point, Dennis, the outdoor plaza on the second floor, installing that movie screen so that you can have those movie nights, Chief, allows the community to come in, feel more secure, and feel connected to the police department especially.
And with that being said, maybe I'll take this time to tell the story about how the plaza came about. So this project was delivered via CM at Risk with our partners, Kettle Hut and Wilhelm. So with CM at Risk, that brings our contractor partners to the conversation much earlier than a traditional design bid build would have. So having that input for constructability and budgeting, those resources, we were able to really look at all of the decisions from multiple perspectives. And during one of the live shredding exercises, we started to, the buildings were always intended to connect, right? Like, here's your public safety building, is going to connect to your parking structure. And this thing was massive. I mean, it's going to take up the whole block, right? So how do we make sure that the experience is pedestrian friendly, whether you're walking across the street from the city hall, or it's, you know, you can still see it driving in your vehicle somewhere between 20 and 80 miles an hour down Columbia Street.
Maybe not 80.
20 and 35 miles an hour down Columbia Street. But it was important that you could see it and feel its impact from all of these various perspectives. So one of the thoughts, well, when we were looking at how invasive the laydown and site logistics were going to be to the city, by trying to build these concurrently, we were going to have to close, you know, Columbia Street, and it was just causing a lot of heartache. So we pulled up and we were like, okay, let's relook at this a different way, and we pulled the buildings apart, which gave us all that sun exposure on the east side of the public safety building, and then it pulled the, you know, parking structure further east, and then we had opportunity for construction laydown and crane in the middle of the two buildings, which was a lot less invasive to the city and the street shutdowns. So, you know, as we were looking at the numbers and the budget, like, time is money, right? So the contractors were really excited about this. They're like, yes, if we separate the buildings and have that space in between, we can build them simultaneously, and that's going to cut time, right, which equals money. So we were able to reinvest that money into the plaza, which is it's elevated, so it's over the secured parking for the police officers. You have a really dramatic stair that enters off of 6th and Columbia entrance, which is one of the most beautiful features, in my opinion. But the plaza just took a whole other, you know, a whole other life form, right? And we got really excited for the opportunities, right? It's right connected to the community room, so you offer spill out and flow. It's very beautifully landscaped up there. There's some art installed. So the designers went crazy with that. But that, you know, was never intended to be a priority. It was just a really nice outcome of the collaborative CMC process.
Yeah,
So
we didn't have to compromise on
Right.
anything either, not on the building or the parking garage or anything. So it all worked out very well. Yeah.
So I think one of the things too, Carrie, that we could go on as far as when those conversations start to happen as far as lay down space and the logistics on site and how these things work is consistently the city was also reaching out to neighbors that were adjacent to the construction site. They were working with the small business owners, making sure that there was signage that was posted saying, hey, the business is still open, even though there might be some orange barrels down the road that cuts off one lane. It offered you an opportunity to really reach out and try and do some recruitment too, as you know, for other community members with the building being built. So there were a lot of communication efforts that were happening as these challenges were being raised and how the site was going to be built.
You know, one of the things that police departments across the state really envy, I'll say the vehicle processing bay is something that a lot of departments would love to have. The secure sally port, I mean, from a risk standpoint, was a no-brainer. You know, we had to keep these accused safe while they're in police custody, and unloading them on the street opens, you know, potential that they take off and, you know, are, God forbid, you know, injured while in police custody. So that was really a risk mitigation factor. The real-time crime center is tiered seating with a whole wall of monitors, which is intended to allow LPD to have access to other agency feeds. So if the state police want to plug into their feeds, Purdue Police Department can plug into their feeds. And if there's a huge event or something's happened, then all the agencies can get on the same page quickly and be communicating from the same playbook. So that's something else that, I mean, every department needs that, but most of them have to do without.
Yeah. When I give
Well, to your points, I think as well too, with LPD coming out of where they were at City Hall and such, when we were doing some of these meetings and design process and everything, everybody was thinking about what they had, not what they could have. And that took a little while through that process to start thinking about what you could have and how could it function better and such. And so the team around this table, I think, did a really good job of doing that and bringing that out with everybody as well too, because that just made a big difference, because you were coming out of something that was not very functional, but you didn't know what could be and such. So I don't think we had to take things off the table so much, but we added more things that added so much more functionality and efficiency and everything to the job that everybody has to do here.
And I think that's some of the growing pains that we've had this year is we tried doing the functions that we did in that building here. It just didn't work because the space was different, the locations of where people were different. So we had to relearn a lot of our processes. It made them better and more efficient and safer in the end, but we had to relearn them.
Yeah, I mean, we consider everything from, you coming off the street with the detainee to, where you lock your guns to how you detain them temporarily. And then where do you go from there, right? Evidence storage, like all of these flows are different than what they had in the city hall basement. Can I talk about the smell in the city hall basement?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Or the water leaking down. Yeah. It's being
that's
fixed
not
now,
the smell
though.
I was talking about.
And it's going to be nice for the fire department. The mayor's put a nice gym down there, so we're excited about that building being renovated and fixed.
Well, and Annette mentioned earlier, like the functional programming and the actual programming and how the numbers and the square footage is assigned. And a lot of times our clients will come to us and say, okay, I need 20,000 square feet of play space. And we're like, well, why? How'd you get there? Well, I have 10 now, and I'm going to be double the size in 10 years, so I need 20. That's like owner math, right? So when we start to look at the type of space that you really need, your growth projections, you could have 10,000 square feet of terribly designed space to where you don't need more, you just need better space. So taking that conversation through all of their departments and hearing, I need 4 offices. Well, great, but do you need 4 or do you need 6? Right? Or do you need 2? So it's all of the sort of formula that the designers use to get you to that right number.
So there's a couple of different things too. When we're sitting at the table next to an owner and we're thinking about things just because of our experience with different industries, and policing's no different. You have IDACs that you need to be compliant with. You have different regulatory or certification like CALEA if you were a CALEA certified agency. So we're bringing all of these parameters to the table to say, is there line of sight? Are we compliant? Are we going to be able to maintain that safety of and privacy of information if somebody's just walking by my desk? So that's a big component as far as these projects too. And again, it just plays into making your team best in class.
And I'll kind of roll into this building is designed as a 50-year building. So, it was $51 million for a 50-year building. Looking at the finishes and the materiality of the exterior, everything is truly beautiful, but everything has a purpose and was purposefully selected to be durable, to maintain that longevity, to be cleanable, right? So all of these things were taken into consideration. Nothing is a luxury, right? Like everything's just very purposeful.
Yeah. So another thing that the design team and the owners looked at as well during this whole process was, do we have all of our mechanical piping running the correct lengths so we aren't wasting material? So looking at material waste, how is a backsplash installed behind a sink? Is it diagonal? Are we going to have a lot of material waste? Is that going to be, wasted money, wasted taxpayer money? So there's, all of these different considerations we could talk about for probably 2 weeks, nonstop.
We love this stuff. Let's dive into that a little bit though. So I know a few of the smaller details. I know that the secured area, it has bulletproof walls. I don't know what you call that material, but I know it's bulletproof. I know that
resistant.
Resistant. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the doors.
Yeah. What are some other examples like that?
The sound barriers in the walls, the interview rooms. We can talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there is definite double construction in interview rooms so that there's no sound bouncing above the ceiling and into the other room, which is typically how sound works in different buildings. And then we do
there's a
have
reason for that, right? So the reason is because if you put prisoners next to each other, they can talk to each other and get their story straight before they talk to the cops. So even as much as the light switches have rubberized gaskets on them, so sound can't get out. So yeah, that's something that was just normal in the older building. Like we had to worry about it. Now it's accounted for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the most important thing is just it's clean, it's streamlined, it's modern, and it has very high endurance materials.
Yeah, so what I think of it as a purposeful built police department. Am I saying that right? Purposeful? Is that the right word? Purposefully built police department. And then we talk about the parking garage, but also the roll call rooms, that you have rooms off of it to have meetings and whiteboards. I mean, just the things that we take for granted now.
Chief, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the dispatch area.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a spaceship.
Well, they were coming from like the darkest of dungeons and I mean, this goes back to the true public servant heart that all of them have, right? I mean, they worked there for the business, not because they were sitting in the Taj Mahal, right? But they still came in every day and were committed to the LPD and the community of Lafayette. So when we started talking to the dispatch people, they were so hungry for daylight, right? Like it sounds so just novel, but that's all they were asking for. And we figured out how to get them into an open area space. And they have described it as like the dungeon to the penthouse. Mm-hmm. And we talk about a quality of life that they would never have gotten without intentionality behind where they sit and the work that they do for this department.
Right. They work 12-hour shifts. So just the fact that they're able to see sunlight.
It's a very stressful position. So, whatever we can do to make it easier, more comfortable for them, the better. And the new stations that they have their own lighting. They can adjust it any way they want. Their chairs adjust, the desks adjust. There's heating, individual heating and cooling, just all kind. They have their own little space and pod.
There's two layers of window shades too. Mm-hmm. So they can lower a shade that allows some light to still come in, or they can go complete blackout. So creature comforts is huge in a dispatch work area.
Yeah.
Even those little lights that say whether they're on a call, even the little lights that talk about whether they're on a call or not. I mean, those indicators have really helped them.
But it helps in those emergency situations because they need to be focused on that individual and everything. So all these things really help that. It really help their job.
I think we should transfer to like attraction or retainage because like Chief was telling me before this that you've been able to get some more dispatch.
So when it comes to recruiting and retention, that's the name of the game, especially nowadays with the hiring crisis in law enforcement. And the building has helped. I make the comparison to a football facility at a college. If you have a nice stadium, a nice weight room equipment, and nice locker rooms, that's going to attract recruits. And I think the same thing is true for a police department. So we're starting to see that. We're definitely seeing it in dispatch. We're starting to see it at the officer level, that people that come through here know it's best in class. I say it's the largest, most technologically advanced police department in the country. And anybody that comes in here is in awe of it. So I will not ever turn down somebody that wants to come walk through this building, whether it's a citizen on the street or a politician or a kid that's just interested in policing. I will personally do that because I'm excited about it.
And you guys have been able to hire 19 officers, right, from 23
Yep.
till now?
So we're starting to see the turn out of the 2020 COVID season of people not wanting to be cops. And I think we're starting to see that people want to serve again. And I think we're in a good position with this building and the things we're doing here at the police department, technology-wise and just leadership-wise, that is drawing people.
That's actually 19 is double what it was at the time of the groundbreaking. So 3 years ago, we hired 8 people. And just the fact that it's doubled since the Public Safety Center has opened is insane. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. What else have officers said that they love besides, the parking garage?
I think just the locker room is a big improvement. There's breadboards that pull out so officers can put their gear down. Again, we go back to...
Explain what a breadboard is, Chief.
Breadboard, so a locker, underneath the locker is about midway, you have a board, basically a breadboard that's large enough to pull out to put your stuff on. Individual showers, just like a clean, bright area. The roll call room is large with dry erase boards and monitors so they can have really good meetings in there. That's important before you go on a shift. Just really the ebb and flow of the building is a police department. It's an actual police department.
The offices are much more customizable with the desks and everything because they all raise and lower. So there's a lot more functionality and flexibility. They can put their own individual spaces in their offices and other parts of the building as well too.
And Dennis is right on that. And also the sergeants and lieutenants have their own space. So it used to be a situation where every sergeant would share the same computer, and now each one has their own bullpen, and lieutenants have their own offices. So it's really, you need that as a supervisor.
And in the past, most of the officers were working out of their car because they have a full setup in their patrol car. But now, like, I come in and see patrol officers working in here, which is pretty great.
Can't beat all new furniture and HVAC where people are comfortable, right?
But I worry about it keeping new. So I talk about Carrie about making sure there's not holes in the walls,
Yeah,
and
you're
there's
not
not
allowed to hang up
stickers
your
on
own stuff.
your furniture.
One of the things I thought was interesting is like the window layout on the exterior, particularly facing 6th Street and this side. When you look at the windows, they're narrow and kind of tall, and some are different widths. And the intention behind that is to allow maximum flexibility on the inside. If the floors need to flex, in their actual floor plan, they're not prohibited by the column structure. That was all very intentional to allow maximum flexibility.
Speaking on that, because the building is secured, most of Lafayette haven't been in and visited and gotten one of our tours. So can we do a quick audio tour? Let's start from the bottom. What's on the floor, the first
right
floor?
here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Just
Talk us through.
Well, the safety of the building actually starts at the front vestibule off of Columbia and 6th Street. So when you come into that vestibule, if you are somebody who is in danger and needs to seek the support of an officer or have an officer take a report, there is a room that is off that vestibule where somebody can seek safety, and then an officer can come and greet them and basically take their statement or help them in the way that that individual needs. When you come into the first floor lobby, there's also an information desk that is available for, say for instance, one of your officers is injured and needs to be on light duty. That individual can be there also as a welcoming face and presence to the public as they're coming into the space. So there's directional signage then that takes the public to the second floor. So there's basically two primary ways to come into the building. One of them is through the attached parking garage across the plaza into the second floor lobby, which is where records is housed. And then also you can come in off the street, basically up the stairs. You would come in that main vestibule off of Columbia and 6th Street and go up the stairs or up the elevator to the actual second floor to go to the records area or to the community room if you're there for an event. The other thing that I will note too is there's a family restroom that's on the first floor lobby, so individuals can, have a place to actually go if they have children, so that they can change diapers or do whatever they need to as a family.
And a little more information on that. The open public area is open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. But that front vestibule area is actually open 24 hours. So if anyone is ever in any need, they can come in and talk to an officer 24/7.
And there's also an intercom box that will ring to dispatch so that that individual can get the need that they, the help and support that they need.
Right. Let's switch to an officer's perspective. So if you have one of these nifty key fobs on the force, after you go in that front door.
So I'll start from the parking garage. So if you have a nifty key fob, we have a canine storage, I say storage area, but we have a canine kennel
Holding
area.
pen.
So where the canines can be kept warm and have running water, hot and cold water. So an officer that has a canine can put their partner there. Come through, there's an area for a holding cell if we needed to do that. Typically in this building, we've not needed that. It's large enough and enough interview rooms and spaces that we're able to quickly interview people without having to have them be detained for any length of time. Patrol interview rooms are in that space with integrated cameras that are Axon cameras. So it's any video we take, any audio recording, any report we take is under one umbrella of the Axon system. So it's super nice. It makes it really easy, high functionality. That's the first floor area where the officers would interact with usually a detainee. But then the officers in the secure area have access to an armory, which we use to repair any firearms, small repairs that we need to make if we want to send something out. A small area. It's a nice area, though, to bag and tag quick items, maybe a bag of dope or a gun or something quick, cell phone. and then you got a patrol area for the commanders, a roll call room. So that first floor is really pretty active. That's the most active floor because you have the most people using those areas.
Something I thought was interesting during the conversation about how, it's the community policing conversation. So acknowledging that not everyone who comes to this building has done something wrong. There's families, there's victims. And, in the past, they were all sort of shuffled through the same process, and acknowledging that there's, people in true distress, there's kids coming. Being a little bit softer in the treatment of them so that it's a different kind of experience than maybe it would have been in the past.
You know what? That's a good point because we have the YWCA. We have a victim advocate from the YWCA housed in her own wing of the second floor. So that is great access. And like you said, most of the people that come here are not here because they're in trouble. They're here to get an accident report or make some sort of criminal complaint of something that, like you said, to support them of what they need from us. That's who comes here for the most part.
And truthfully, the people who are coming here, it's probably not the best day of their life.
No,
right?
It's nice to have a space to have people feel comfortable to do interviews and do those things.
Yeah, make it the best you can.
And Chief, you may mention some of the more recent additions you've made with staff, with Adam Murphy, and how you're dealing with homelessness and mental health and those issues.
Yeah, so we have, thanks to Dennis's kindness, has allowed us to have the homeless outreach person housed inside the police department, and they're under our position of control. Also, we have a resource navigator, and they have their own cubicles and offices, and they work right next to each other, which makes it really effective. And those things are just getting off the ground now. So we plan to really stretch our legs here on some of the things we're trying to do.
Basically, another area of collaboration for especially other county departments that need to come here is in your property and evidence area. So if they need to do some intake, they have some space on the fourth floor to be able to perform their work side by side, your team, so that if there's multiple entities that are working on a case, then everybody's collaborating together. One last point that I would bring up too is by bringing the team together in one building, there was very mindful and intentional community space for the specific police department too, and a common break room that is within the building, so that there can be more of that collaboration, more of that team building, more getting to know your fellow officer, right? So there was a specific and intentional reason for locating that common break room in the area that it's at.
I thought it was interesting when Chief was talking about how, typically construction processes become, very adversarial, right? And this one has been the opposite. So we're very much interested in how this building is operating today, right? All these design decisions that we made a year ago, how is it operating today?
You're excited. I can see the excitement when you come here.
I know.
I can when Annette comes here, what's do we need to make sure it's working functionally?
Would you change anything?
Yeah, and how's this working out?
Yes.
You guys care about how it's working.
Yeah. Would you make any changes?
No. I always talk about the bathroom in the chief's office.
Why?
Because if you had a female chief at some point, you may want to have separate bathrooms, but
so that's
that's a small thing.
And as soon as Scott took over, he was like, I need to be mindful that this is a potential. And what am I going to do with this bathroom if I do have a female chief or DC chief?
Yeah.
Female
deputy chief or
female deputy chief step in.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll just mention, and we touched upon it a little bit about the intentionality of the materials and making this efficient, but it's also very energy efficient. We intentionally put solar panels on top of the roof, and our expectation was that might offset around 20% of the electricity cost, but I think it's more around 40%. So that was a very good investment on our part of taxpayer money. So we're very happy how that's working out and making it even more green and sustainable.
One thing we did change was the hand dryers. They didn't go to waste. We gave them to the parks, but everybody wanted hand towels. They didn't want hand dryers, so we got it for free. We replacements for free, so it was nice. But we did put one hand towel in every bathroom.
So if that's the worst thing, we're doing
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yes.
Agreed.
You want air or paper?
And I think another huge change for us civilians is we added an air fryer to the kitchen.
Ooh.
Congratulations.
I want to talk a little bit about JS Held and their role in that, which is an owner's rep, which is actually something new for the city. We have not really done that before. We've handled all of our projects with our own staff and such, but this was a huge project, one of the biggest projects the city's ever undertaken. And again, a lot of moving parts to it, a lot of different things and such. So we really did feel like we needed some outside expertise on this and such. So we had conversations with JS Held and had seen their track record on other projects and things and what they could bring to the table. And I will tell you that it was some of the best decisions I think we made. The value they have brought to the table far outweighed the cost. So I think we again, when I talked earlier about the functionality of it and how the different users were looking at the space, Annette and the team were able to really guide us through and say what could be. And that was really what made the difference and everything. And then Annette also brought a lot of her expertise and best practices from other places and the work that she had done, her education and such. And it just elevated the whole project and just took it to a whole new level. So again, it's a fantastic value, and I would definitely work with them again.
Thank you.
And during our first stage of our process, we interviewed different architects and engineers because that's the backbone of this project and everything, and who's going to do the design and work with us on this. So, we created an RFP, request for proposal process, and we had a lot of good response to that. We had a lot of firms, and that all brought a lot to the table. Structurepoint was also someone we had worked with before, so we were familiar with them and what they brought to the table. But it really, at the end of the day, in comparison to everyone else, we again thought they brought the best expertise, the best value, the best team. Teaming with the other sub-consultants and things like as well were very important. So, and going through that interview process, so it was difficult during COVID, but we really felt like they brought what we needed to the table, and it shows.
And I think one of the things that Structurepoint did well too was they brought experts in law enforcement to the table. So they brought a team member, ADG, into the mix so that those specific aspects were for law enforcement were considered at every single turn.
Yeah, I'd be remiss. Thank you, Janice. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention and shout out to our partners, ADG Architects Design Group, Applied Engineering, Wilhelm, Kettle Hut, and of course, JS Held.
We've reached the time in the podcast where we answer a few of our social media followers' questions. You guys ready?
Ooh.
Let's see what we have here. First up, which door do we enter, street level or second level? I guess it depends where you park or where you're coming from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, your choice, and kind of Annette went through that a little bit. You have the downstairs, especially after hours, between the hours of 5 p.m. and 7 a.m. You want to come down to that first floor vestibule. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
Never could get that word correct. Yeah, that's where you got a call box. You can get a hold of dispatch, but either if not, you can come through the first or second floor.
We get this one a lot. How much did it cost?
$51 million.
All in
On time and under budget.
during a time when cost was so unpredictable.
Yes.
Right. What are your favorite personal aspects? So maybe like a smaller aspect we haven't went over.
My favorite aspect is the people. So the team that we worked with was incredible. All of the stakeholders from the city were phenomenal and patient and very willing to listen and understand and accept, differences as far as we have to close this different street down. So we're going to change our path of driving for a lot of officers many times throughout our design and engineering and contractor teams, and just being able to always come together at the table with collaboration as the main focus, and making sure that we're moving that step forward and not steps back. And then just to be able to walk down the street and Mayor Worski says, "Hi, Annette." That's awesome. I love that. So I've met so many fabulous people in the city of Lafayette, and that has been the biggest aspect for me.
Yeah, when we do projects like this, and they don't leave us. Like, these are our babies too, as much as they're your babies. Like, I couldn't be more proud of this thing. I make everybody look at it. I drive them up here. We walk around, like, we love it too. And so when we can connect to our community and actually have improved the lives of the people who work in this building, that is why we do this. And to be able to see it and to see how thankful everyone is to have the space to work in and how supportive it is to their police work, we couldn't have asked for anything else.
And a lot of times we walk away with friends like Dennis.
Absolutely.
As, you know, in our futures, and we will continue to build that. And Chief.
And MK.
And MK. And we could
The
go down
brains.
we could go down the entire roster.
Yes. Yes.
Dennis, do you have a special one?
Yeah, again, building off what they said, the whole process was very enjoyable. So it was a weekly meeting that I really looked forward to. I didn't really know what quite to expect and how long it was going to take and everything, because I had other stuff to do as well too. But it became a very enjoyable process, and being able to have that interaction with everybody and be able to contribute, like I did and like others did, and such, and knowing that we're doing something for the benefit of the community. It's going to elevate the community. It's going to help the community, and at the end, it's going to be something that's going to be very important and raise our quality of life and keep us all safe and all those things. So it was very just a great process to be part of that.
In the future growth of Lafayette and the growth we've already experienced, I mean, Dennis, really, you're able to use this now as you're attracting other entities to the city as such a benefit to just the community in general.
Yes, yeah, right. Yeah, downtown is one of our recruitment tools, but we also talk about priorities that we have as a community here, and as the administration here, that public safety is number one. And this building, I think, reflects that. And when we have economic development prospects or other people that come to the city for anything, they see that, and they see how important it is. Yeah.
And for me, it's the officers, kind of like Annette was saying. The officers have a wonderful place to work. It's clean, it's bright. And really, this police department has gone through 3 critical things that many police departments don't go through at all, or maybe every 25 or 50 years. We had still in the middle of a little bit of a hiring crisis and a staffing crisis. We've had a new records management and CAD system employed, and you have a $51 million building. So those things are all, maybe one of those things happens to a chief during their tenure, but 3
Don't
at the
forget
same
the
time.
eclipse.
Yeah, and the eclipse. But never 3 at the same time. And this police department's made it through it, and the community has supported us. And I'm just proud of the officers for hanging in there and believing in it. In 1998, when I was hired, I always thought it'd be neat because I knew that building, even in 1998 when I was new, I knew it wasn't adequate for a police department. And I knew the safety wasn't right. Like Carrie talked about getting prisoners out on the sidewalk. It was not a police department. So I thought, man, it would be neat to work in a police department a new one before I retire. So that's why this is special. It's special for me, for the officers to be in one central location, and hopefully I get a few more years here.
And I just want to thank you all again for joining us. I can't believe we've been here a whole year already. I love working in here. I know all the officers do. It's a great place to work.
Thank you.
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're so proud of it.
All right. Well, that's it for Inside the
Okay.
Squad. We'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.